guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing very nice. I'm sending a lot of hugs and poetry to all of you. Hi, if you're new, welcome to the channel. I really hope you enjoy the content, and if you do, please do consider subscribing. After what has felt like 3 months, I am here with the August wrap up. I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I have read in the month of August, giving them stars, which I don't do in other videos. And as long as August felt, I had one of the most amazing, successful, add 10 more thousand adjectives to that, reading month ever. I have read all sizes of books. I have read all genres of books. I have read thrillers, I have read romance, I have read YA romance, I have read fantasy, I have read literary thrillers, name it, and I have read it this month, and it was just so good, so good. So grab your drink of choice, because I am going to take my time today and I am going to talk about all of these books at length because I love them so much for you, so that you get fresh recommendations, but also for myself, because I do want to look back at this video and remember how I felt about each book, because I want to capture this feeling forever. So I am not going to waste any more time on the intro. I'm going to be talking about all of the books in the sequence in which I read them. Please ignore that bike sound. So you may get a 5-star recommendation, and you probably will actually at the end of the video. And with that, let's wrap up the month of August. I started August with a romance binge because after reading the Six of Crows duology, I felt like I left a piece of my heart in the duology, because of which I just did not know which other book to pick. I sort of fell into a reading slump, and I know that sort of sounds a little bit hyped up for the Six of Crows duology, but that is how I felt. 1200 pages of something that wrecks you up so much emotionally. This is how you feel. So I went to my safety net. I went to the genre which I know that, oh, I just need it in the moment. So I just went to it and I started a romance binge. The first book I read in that was Beach Rivals by Georgie Tilney, which is One Bookshop in Paradise, Two Bitter Rivals, and a whole summer to get through. This is the story of Claire, who is 25 years old, and she feels completely lost, not just in a way where she feels like a failure because she has not achieved what she wants to achieve. She doesn't even know what she wants to achieve, and she lives with her mother at the age of 25, which honestly I don't understand what the problem is with it, but that is surely a sign of failure for Claire. So she's just wallowing in her self-pity when she comes across an ad that says that you have to go to Bali for 3 months and you have to read books and recommend them to people to buy, and if you take care of the bookstore and you read these books and recommend people, basically increase the sales and all of those things, you will get paid for it. And that is obviously a dream job for like literally anyone. So it feels like a fantasy, but also it feels real, and so Claire decides to take a risk and she just goes. All of these things happen in the first 20-30 pages itself. I was already connected to Claire in the first 20-30 pages, and our main male character Jack was not even in the picture, and then 20-30 pages later, when he did come in the picture, he was this adorable little guy who just is super introverted, so you don't know much about him. My only problem with the book is that it was not dual POV, and I get it, not all romance books can be dual POV, but I just really wish I would get to know more about Jack and his internal dialogue. And then you get to see what happens with the bookshop, what happens with Claire and Jack. The vibes were so good when Claire was taking care of the bookshop, when they were talking about how they can take care of it, what they can do to sell more books, when they were reading, when they were at the beach, the whole Bali atmosphere. It was such a well-written book, and it was so short, so I did not get bored anywhere at all. I think the length was perfect. Now towards the end, I did feel a little bit jealous of Claire because she literally gets her dream life. So you can just imagine how amazing the book was to make me feel that way. And so basically I enjoyed this book a lot, gave it a very strong 4-star. Next in the romance binge, I read Final Offer by Lauren Asher, which was a complete surprise for me. I got this book because I read the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. This is the 3rd book in this series, and I did not like the first book, which is a fine print, that much. As we moved ahead, I started enjoying it, which is why I thought of giving this one a chance. Secondly, it was very cheap in the Prime Day sale, and thirdly, everybody says that this is the best book in the entire series. So I was like, you know what, who cares? I was like, I have nothing to lose. Let's just get it. Let's just see what it's like, and let's just read it. It is 600 pages, like almost 600 pages. I think 576 pages. And I was like, what do you have to say? You are a romance book. What do you have to say that is going to take 600 pages, but I still dived into it because I wanted something like this. I wanted that safety of a romance where you know that everything is going to be fine in the end. And so I picked on it and I was pleasantly surprised. Very, very pleasantly. Very, very surprised. The basic storyline of the entire series is that their grandfather dies, and these are 3 brothers, and in each book, each brother has to do something in order to take on the will that their grandfather has left for them. Their father is like this brutal jerk, and so these brothers don't want their father to get everything, and so they're doing everything they can to be successful. And this is the story of Callahan. Callahan has to sell a lake house and meet Alana, and Alana is his childhood lover. I am literally in love with this book, and after finishing it I was like, I do hope that a lot of romance books are this long, because this has dual POV, and so you get to see the perspective of each character, and also each character is so properly built as individuals that whenever there was romance, it was so much more believable, it was so much more precious. I did not expect that from this book at all. There are themes of mental health, there are themes of addiction and how you deal with it. Callahan is this amazing guy who is very, very shitty, honestly, in the beginning of the book, but you see his character arc. And then we have Alana, who is this super amazing, prioritizing herself, self-aware person. She is doing everything she can for her child, and it's all just so good. The entire combination, what you do with yourself and how you love yourself and how that is important to love somebody else, it's all so good. So I really loved this book so much, and I had butterflies in so many places. This one is definitely a spicy book, and honestly I liked the spice too. You do not have to read all of the books in the Dreamland Billionaire series to get to this. Obviously you can if you want to, but I would say that even if you don't read the other 2 books, read this one. It was definitely amazing. And for anybody thinking if I'm ever going to read the second book, which is Terms and Conditions, no, I am not. I read this book and now I have an impression of this, and the impression is so good. I don't want to read the second book and just like take a risk that this impression will get ruined. This one again was a very strong 4 stars. I think it will climb up to 4.5, but right now 4 stars. Next up, I read In a New York Minute by Kate Spencer, which is Kate Spencer's debut. This is the story of 2 people. Obviously, Franny is having a very bad day in the subway, and then we have Hayes, I have no idea how to take his name, but we have Hayes who comes to the rescue and helps her, and Franny is so grateful. But somebody on the subway clicks their picture, and that picture goes viral, and everybody uses the hashtag subway cuties to describe them, and everybody thinks that they're already in love, whereas Franny and Hayes don't even know each other. They are completely different from each other, so it's an opposites attract trope, and it is an adorable one at that. After reading such a long book, Final Offer, I wanted something quick and something fast-paced, and that is exactly what this book was. The writing style was very quick and fast-paced with very short sentences, so there were like so many cuts that kept you on your toes. The dual POV, the banter, the dialogues, it all kept you on your toes, and it never felt like I have to sit down with it. In the middle somewhere I did get bored, because as amazing as both the characters were, it did get a little bit repetitive, where they were like, oh my god I like you, but am I gonna tell you? Oh my god I like you, but am I gonna tell you? Just tell them. You just tell them. I mean, it was just too much agitation inside me. So that's probably a personal thing, but it is what it was. Also strong New York vibes. So if you like reading books with the New York setting, this is your book. In the end of the romance binge, I read Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon, who is also the author of The X Talk and also the author of Today, Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow, Yesterday, something like that, which is a YA romance which I really want to read. I read this for the Romance Fever campaign that Penguin India was holding, and I am so grateful to have read it. This is the story of Chandler, who is a ghost writer, and the last job that she has was just so bad. Like, it was so degrading for her that she just wants to get done with it at this point. And so as soon as the job ends, she goes to the bar and she's just having a chill night, and that is where she meets the main male character Finn, and they hit it off instantly. instantly, and she really likes him and he really likes her, and it feels like they see each other. And so she's like, you know what, I'm going to forget about everything else and I'm just going to have a good night today. So she spends the night with Finn, but it does not turn out to be a good night, and she's really happy in the morning that, oh my god, thank god I never ever have to meet him again. But then when she goes for her next ghostwriting job, she comes to know that she has to work with Finn, which is awesome. And that is where the entire topic of how the night went also comes, and it's awkward and it's weird, but then you see what happens with that, and that is how there's business and there's pleasure, as the title suggests. This was such a fun read, and it was sort of like waves of various emotions, where on one hand there was so much spice, like very like a lot of spice obviously, but on the other hand, whenever they were being cute and warm, it was so cute and so warm and so fuzzy and so adorable. This also deals with the themes of mental health, depression, anxiety, OCD in a very amazing sensitive manner. I loved that too. My only thing is that the spice was too much, and I am not the one to say no to spice, but it was a little bit too much for me. That is it. So in the end, I did skip a lot of the spice because I was like sort of done with it from the beginning of the book. But if you like spicy reads, this is your book, because it's the perfect combination of being spicy and being warm and being adorable and cute and vulnerable. So I loved it. Strong 4 stars. Did I tell you about this one? This one is a strong 3.75 stars. I'm saying strong because I would give it a little bit more, and it'll probably climb up to more as time passes, but right now it's literally what I think about it. After that, I had realized that I am in a slump. Okay, I was like, Anshul, stop pushing through. In 2 weeks I read 4 books, which I know it is still a lot of books, but still that is not my normal speed of reading books, and I just really wanted to enjoy reading. Okay, I missed reading, and I was so sad that I'm in a slump, and so I adopted some of my own techniques. I needed something to get out of the slump. I needed like a surprise. I needed something to shock me out of it, and one of the things I do to get out of my reading slumps is to shock myself with a new genre or read something completely different from what I generally read. And so at the right time, we also got a package, and the package included this book which got me out of the reading slump, which is Kala by Colin Walsh. This book holds so much value for me because I think this is the first book that I have read in this genre. It is a literary thriller, and I have never read literary thrillers. I have read thrillers, but they are more about the plot, and I have never read a thriller where the characters are so important and they're so dimensional and they're so rich and they're so, what do you call it, that word with C, complex. They're so complex, and those characters stay with you, and that is how I felt with Kala. This is the story of 6 best friends who had the time of their lives when they were 15 years old, and the backdrop is of an Irish town, Kinloch. But then something happens during that summer and Kala goes missing, and that summer has impacted all 6 of them in ways that cannot be described. After that, they all go their own ways, and I think this is after 15 or 18 years. Due to some reasons, Helen and Joe, who are 2 of the best friends, they have to come back to town. Mush already stays in the town, so these are the 3 friends. But then at the same time, Kala's bones are found, which means Kala is definitely dead. At the same time, something else happens, because of which the 3 friends come together to figure out what exactly happened to Kala and what exactly happened to this other event that happened, which again I'm not going to tell you, you have to read. I don't want to spoil it. Okay, I don't want to spoil it. You have 3 POVs of Mush, Joe and Helen. Mush is literally the best character ever. I love him so much. And Joe's POV is said from a second person perspective, and I don't know if this is actually true or if I am thinking this, but Joe is always looking at himself from an outside perspective, from a perspective as to how people look at him, and he does not feel settled and grounded within himself. And so when you read his POV, he's always talking about, you are doing this, about himself. He's like, you are getting up, you are getting a beer, you are doing this, you feel like this, and never that I feel like this. I think it's because he's been raised in a way where he does not look at himself as himself. He looks at himself only from the perspective of others. And that interpretation that I made on my own, again, I don't know if it is true, but that is what I made on my own. I loved it. Okay, I loved it. I love making these interpretations. I love figuring out the writing styles. I love when the writing style is so complex, where you change the way in which a character speaks, which reflects the way he feels and he thinks about himself. It was so good. More than thrilling, it is a very haunting book, hauntingly beautiful. I still gave it a 4.5 stars out of 5, and the only reason I have taken out the 0.5 stars is because it has and trigger warning, animal cruelty, which I hate. I cannot survive it. I cannot read about it. I can't, and it's graphic. So even if there's animal cruelty and something happens to an animal and it's just, oh, it happened, it's over, then it's still fine. I can sort of skim through it, sort of, you know, fool myself that I've never read it. The animal cruelty in this was graphic, so that was my problem. Again, a personal problem, and the stars I gave are so personal, and so I've given it a 4.5 stars. I loved reading a thriller where the characters were rich and I got attached to them, and I just wanted to see what was going to happen, and they were complex and they were great, and it was so good. The next book got me back into the reading slump. We have Need Me by Tessa Bailey. Everybody knows, I mean, no, not everybody knows. I'm telling you now that if I get a Tessa Bailey book, I cannot wait to open it and start reading it. I can't. I have to read it the same day, the same time when it comes. And I think I still had to wait for a day or two or something like that. This is the story of Honey, who gets out of her town and she goes to the city because she wants to get into medical and she wants to become a doctor. But then she really starts liking her professor, and then we have the professor, blah, blah, blah. The reason I'm like so blah, blah about the plot is because I did not enjoy this book. I love Tessa Bailey. I have only read 2 books by her till now, but I love both of them so much. They opened up a new door for me. I did not know I can enjoy books in this way, where my mind is completely switched off and I don't care about what I am reading, and there's spice and there's so much drama and there's so much good romance and the male characters are like so good. I love Tessa Bailey, okay, but this one was very bad, like very bad for me, and I don't not like books, okay? I don't hate on books. I am the kind of person who treats books like a human being sometimes. The writing style of the book, the topics of the book, the plot, whatever it is, I let the book be what it is and I enjoy it for what it is. I am a very liberal person like that. I am like, you know what, you do you, and I am here to accept you the way you are, and that is how I judge the books. Even after that, and I gave this book that space, I did not like this book. The main male character of this book calls the girl Lolita. Lolita is not a nickname. Why are you using Lolita as a nickname? It's not a nickname. Stop it. And then I was like still avoiding it, but then as it progressed, he did something which I can't tell you, but he did something. I was shocked. I was shocked to my core that he did it, and I have never not liked a male character this way. What is wrong with him? What is wrong with him? I did not like him at all. I did not like the main female character at all. Like, what are you doing? I did not like the spice in it. There was no romance to like, and I did not like the story, and I did not like the characters. I did not like anything about this book, and I just want to forget that I ever even read it. So I gave it 1 star. This book put me right back into the reading slump, which is why after that I actually started reading Fourth Wing, but because I felt a little slumpy, I decided to drop it. I read like 7 chapters of it and I dropped it, and I just decided to pick on books without thinking about which book I am picking for a book or any other reason. Just pick it up and read it. No patterns, nothing at all. That is another way to get out of a reading slump for me. And so I picked on The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. Frida McFadden has recently become popular for writing fast-paced, awesome thrillers. That is exactly what I needed. That is why I started reading it. This is the story of a woman who discovered that her father is a serial killer when she was 11 years old, and now this is decades later, like 25 years later. He is a doctor now, but 2 of her patients have died. Not died actually, they have been murdered. That is the problem, and so that digs up a lot of her past. I loved the plot twist so much, and it was nowhere in sight. I did not guess it. I don't know, I'm probably dumb, but I did not guess it. So it was such an amazing read. It was dark, it was chilly, it had me everywhere, and I just could not stop my eyes from just like reading the words. So it was definitely an amazing book. My only issue with the book was that, 1, you should not have explained the plot of the book so much on the blurb that I knew so much about it, or 2, if you're going to tell me the blurb, then I needed the story to be a little deeper or be a little thicker. This is a very short book, and I think you're supposed to read it in 1 sitting, but if the plot was a little bit thicker, I would have enjoyed it way more. And so I gave this one a strong 3.75 stars, which will probably climb up to 4 stars, but right now 3.75 stars. After reading that, I got on a call with Chaitanya, dear Chaitanya, and we were just talking about books, and he had recommendations for me, and I will be reading a couple of them in the future. But for now, we talked about this book, which is History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, who is the author of They Both Die at the End. And he told me that you have to be careful about reading this book because this book is really sad. And then he read the first paragraph of this book, and the way he read it, and it wrapped up with the line History Is All You Left Me, and I was completely immersed into the story already. And it's a tragedy, and I was like, you know what, I need that tragedy, I need the sadness, I need that emotional upheaval you get when you read especially a YA romance. And this book had been on my audiobook TBR since a very long time. When I went back to the application, I saw I actually put it on my TBR last year, and he told me that if you read as an audiobook, it's actually really cool. So I was like, you know what, okay. Now he warned me, Chaitanya warned me, but I did not take his warning seriously, and I listened to the book at night, and I was wrecked. Oh my god, my heart was constantly pinched. There are two timelines. One is the present day. I did not tell you what the book is about. So one is the present day, where Theo, Griffin's first love, has died, and we see how Griffin is dealing with the loss. And then we have the past timeline, where we get to see how they started their entire journey throughout to the point where we come to the present day. And whenever the past was going on, my heart was being pinched in a super warm way. It also deals with, again, OCD in such a warm way that I was like, oh my god, like I wanted to cry every minute of it, out of happiness or out of warmth. And then we had the present timeline, where it was so sad, it was like written in such a sad manner that I wanted to cry because it was so sad. And the ending, the last line, oh, even like if I think about it right now, I'll cry. It was so good, and I missed this feeling of reading a YA that makes me feel like this. I'm so going to get back to Chaitanya and make him read something that will also make him feel like this and cry, because he made me cry. But yes, it was an amazing read, super duper easy. It's YA, good for teenagers, easy to read, good for beginners. And I think I like this book way more than They Both Die at the End, without any concept to explore, just a simple story of two boys in love and how they deal with the loss and what happens to their grief, and just awesomeness. I gave this book very strong 4.5 stars. Next up, we have Miss Ice Sandwich by Miyako Kawakami, who is also the author of Breasts and Eggs. And I'm saying that because I have already read that book. I recently realized that I have never talked about Breasts and Eggs with you guys, because I read it last year, and last year I did not do monthly wrap-ups, and I did not make any video where I would talk about Breasts and Eggs, and I did not do vlogs also last year, so there was no video in which I also read it. And so I have read a few books last year that I have never talked about on the channel. For example, Catcher in the Rye, never talked about it with you guys, even if I have read it already. So many other audiobooks, which is why I was so excited to read this one. It is translated from Japanese by Louise Hill Kawai. This is the story of a child, a very young boy who is in 4th standard, who really likes this lady that packs up his egg sandwiches at a store, and he calls her Miss Ice Sandwich because she has beautiful blue eyes like ice sandwich. And so he just goes to the store and he gets his sandwiches, and he's too scared to talk to her, but he just looks at her from far away, and he just really likes her presence. And that is how the story starts. And I was like, meh, you know, okay. It was nice, very nice. And then I got to this point where I just wanted to honestly highlight the entire page, but it was super duper funny because he talked about his mom's face when she's annoyed, and he's like, if there was an animal that did not know what being annoyed meant, then just one look at my mom's face and they'd get an idea. You could make a rubber stamp of mom's face as a demo of what annoyance looks like, and that cracked me up. And that is precisely why I love to read books from children's perspective, because they just look at things from such a different perspective, and they're just so honest and so vulnerable. It was so good. After that, I got attached to the book, and then I kept reading, and as I kept reading, nothing could stop me because of how amazing it was. I actually wanted to give this book a lot of time, even though it is just 92 pages, but I could not stop myself. This is definitely one of the most vulnerable books I have ever read, one of the best books I have ever read, where I wanted to highlight pages. I actually highlighted almost the entire page because of how amazing it was. Our main little guy in this book is going through so much, and there was a point where he cries because he just does not know what else to do, and I cried at that time. I could not stop myself. It made me feel something. So yes, this is also a 6-star read. It's very short to give it a 6-star, so I know it may be weird, but it is definitely a 6-star read for me. It was just exceptional and awesome and such a must read. I love Mieko Kawakami and I cannot wait to read 2 of her other books. Next up, I read a queer romance, which is Always the Almost by Edward Uphill. This is the story of Miles, who has recently gone through changes, and he has changed his pronoun and he identifies as a guy now. Earlier he had identified as a girl, and so now he has to deal with the change, not within himself, because he is just doing what he has wanted to do since a very long time, but the change of the people around him and how they look at him and how they perceive him, and you just see the journey of him dealing with these things, but also the journey of him understanding who he really is. He loves to play the piano and he's in this competition, so you also see what happens with that, and they're both intertwined. Now what I loved about the book, usually when there are competitions like this, like a piano competition or whatever it is, they are so separate from the person or the main love story or the main character story that is going on, that when you go to those parts you just want to skim through it, because I don't know anything about piano and I don't know anything about the competition and I don't know anything, right? But the way in which this book was written, they were both interconnected, because playing the piano was also helping him realize what his identity is and what his passion is and who he is on the inside, and I loved that. That was my most favorite part of the book. Also, we also have romance in the book, which was so adorable, so vulnerable, so tender, and so the mix of these 3 things, along with his best friends, the other side characters, his relationship with his father, all of these things was just beautiful. This was such a good read. I obviously love it when books are just super cute and fuzzy and warm, but this one held a lot of meaning, a very strong 4.5 stars. This one is definitely a must read. Like, you have to read this one. Next up in this entire series, where I was just reading whichever book came in my hand, I read The Reading List by Sarah Nisha Adams. This is the story of a reading list which is there in the back of the book, and it has 8 books in it: To Kill a Mockingbird, Rebecca, The Kite-Runner, Life of Pi, Pride and Prejudice, Little Women, Beloved, and A Suitable Boy. And I have read some of it, but different people come across this list in different situations. They're all going through something in their personal lives, and they just pick on this list and they're like, you know what, I have nothing to lose, and they feel like this list was especially written for them because it also says on the top, just in case you need it, and they feel like they do need it. So they pick on this list and they go to a library and they go on this journey of reading these 8 books. But the main characters in the book, I think 2 main characters in the book, are Mukesh and Alicia. Mukesh is a very old guy who has recently lost his wife, and Alicia is going through a hell of a time with her family, with her mother, because everything is just so unstable in her house. And so this list, the library, all of these books, they become a safe place for all of these characters. As a book lover, you cannot miss out on this book. I mean, it captures the entire essence of what it is like to read fiction books, why one reads fiction books, what it makes them feel, and how it impacts their life. I have read other books about books and they talk about how books are just a safe place, but that's the thing. Books are not only a safe place for everybody. Sometimes you relate to characters, and sometimes it helps you to deal with things in your real life, even though books are not real and it's fiction. But the characters that you read, sometimes you relate to them, sometimes you hate them and you realize that you would hate to have that thing in your life. It's just, books move you, they change you as a person, and that is what this book depicts, and I loved it. But it was so not on the face with that message that fiction books are awesome, and this is a literary fiction, and still it did not read like a literary fiction at all. My only problem with the book was that it was a little repetitive here and there, just a tiny bit repetitive, especially actually not the entire book, but only Mukesh's character. Alicia works in a library, and I can't wait to work in a library at this point. I'm not even kidding. I'm actually doing research research to find a library near me so that I can get a part-time job over there to work as a librarian, because after reading this book I just had to do it. Secondly, some of the books talked about, like in the book Time Traveler's Wife and Rebecca and To Kill a Mockingbird, I have to read them like instantly because of how the book has talked about them. When they talked about The Kite Runner, the emotions that they felt was so relatable for me also, because that is how I felt when I read The Kite Runner. I already got Rebecca actually. Let me just show it to you because I'm actually going to return it. But I already bought Rebecca after reading the book for myself. I just do not like this edition at all, so I'm returning it, and I don't know when I'll get another edition because I'm not able to find a good edition. That is how much this book has impacted me. A super duper comforting, awesome read. If you're a beginner in the reading world and you don't understand why you're supposed to be reading or how it will make you feel, or why book lovers are like so crazy about fiction books, even if you're a non-fiction reader and you don't understand why people read fiction books, read this one. A must read. You have to read it no matter what. Strong 4.5 stars. In the end, we have the books that I read in the 24-hour readathon. The first book I read was Train Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent, or Nugent, I think it's Nugent. This is the story of Sally Diamond, who burns his father after his death with trash, and that is all I can tell you. But then as you move forward, you see the perspective of Sally, and you also see the perspective of another guy, Peter, who I'm not going to tell you who he is. You have to read to figure it out. Don't want to give any spoilers out. And you realize that Sally has gone through something horrible in her past. So many emotions while reading this book. I got too connected to the characters. That's a sign of a good psychological thriller, because it did play with my psychology. I have never felt so emotionally drained after reading a thriller as I did with this one. Completely played with my mind. It's so easy to read even if it is a thick ass book. So if you want that sense of accomplishment that you read a big book, you can definitely go for this. If you want to read a thriller that is very out of the general patterns of what thrillers are like, then this is your book. If you want to read a book where you can get connected to the characters too, even though it is a thriller, this is your book. It is not slow at all anywhere, and so many times during the book I was like, no, please don't do this, no. I was saying that loudly because of how it made me feel. Oh my god. This one is a strong 4.5 stars. My two problems with the book were, one, I just really wanted more of Sally Diamond. I loved Sally Diamond's character so much that I wanted more of it. And secondly, because there are different timelines, sometimes there would be an overlap of information, which obviously it makes sense. I totally get it, but I like it when the story is woven in a way where you don't repeat what has already happened in the other chapter, even if it happened in a different timeline or from a different character's perspective. And even if there is a repetition, it's not a repetition of information, and the information was repeated a few times. That was my only slight problem, and so I gave it 4.5 stars. 4.75. Yeah. Just read it. You have to read it. It's so good. It's so good. Next up, I read Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. This is a story of Viola, who is a vampire. She's a real estate agent and she has to sell a house, but that house is haunted by a ghost, and so she goes to Death's godson, which is Fox, to get rid of the ghost. And that is where she meets a reaper and she meets an angel, and they are all pushed into a situation that they were not looking forward to, a game that they now have to play. The blurb should let you know that this book is weird. It's crazy. It's fantasy, obviously, and I loved that there was so much liberty for the book to do whatever it wanted. But oh my god, the things that happen in the book, the entire story is not linear. It does not go from one point to another. It goes to the past, it goes to different perspectives, it comes to the present, it goes not to the future. But so many things happen at once that it is definitely difficult to follow for the first 50-60 pages. But the characters are so cool. The game is so cool that I said the same thing in the vlog. It can either be something totally ridiculous to read or something completely amazing to read, and for me it was something completely amazing to read. I have never read something like this. There were conversations between these characters that made me feel things. It was like a found family of different creatures which I did not know can come together. I did not know I will see Death and Death God's son talking to each other and I feel like I am tearing up. So many things have happened happened in the book that were so unexpected, and I still loved the book so much. This is definitely going to be an experiment for you, especially if you're a beginner in the fantasy world or you've never read anything like this. Keep that in mind and then get into the book. Be ready to be surprised, but definitely give it a shot. I think this is the kind of book where yes, it may not work for everybody, but yes, if it does become something that you like, you are never going to forget it, because I am never going to forget it. This is like a piece of my heart. This one was a 5-star. Next up, I read We Are Inevitable by Gail Foreman, which was the only average read that I had this month. This is the story of Aaron, who has a bookshop and it's closing down and he has to save it, and everything feels like it's going to hell, which is when Hannah comes into his life and he feels like they are inevitable. Nice, very nice. I like the outline, I like the cover, I like the title, and I liked the book almost till halfway through. Oh yeah, see, this is where I have made the last highlight. After this, I don't think I highlighted anything. I loved it so much till this part, till 108, 109 pages, and then it sort of went downhill for me because I did not enjoy the romance in the book. It had very strong potential, but it failed for me, and so I did not enjoy this book a lot. But at the same time, it was not a bad reading experience at all. So it was like an average, midway, oh nice sort of a book, and so I gave it 3 stars. In the end, I read the best book ever, and it was Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. This is the story of 4 sisters who are inseparable, and one guy, William, enters their life and he falls in love with one of the sisters, Julia. But then something from his past comes up, and instead of confiding in Julia, he confides in another sister, Sylvie. I went into the book expecting a lot of drama. I also wanted sisterhood, but I went into the book expecting a lot of drama, because oh, these inseparable sisters, and there's a break between them because of a guy, like what is going to happen, and the Padavano sisters, and it was all so dramatic in my mind, especially when it comes to like an Italian American family. I can just picture the drama. It was so much more than that. If you liked Little Women, you have to read this book. It is nothing like Little Women, but somehow it also gives Little Women vibes, strong Little Women vibes. I loved each and every character so much. I loved even William so much. There are very important themes of mental health, depression, do read the trigger warnings, discussed in the book, and there are different perspectives of Julia, Sylvie and William, and it goes through a timeline. So you sort of start with William's childhood, and then he goes to college, and that's where he meets Julia. So since they were in college till the end of, not end of their life, but like till to a certain point, and it's so good. Time slowed down for me because of this book. I was so silent in my mind, and I have only felt this silent with Olivia Blake's book. Yeah, the same thing happened with Masters of Death, but in a very different way. This one was just beautiful writing, and there are these 2 pages where there's a conversation between William and Sylvie that just, I've never read something like this. Never. This is a strong 5 stars right now, and it will possibly turn into a 6 star as time passes, and you have to read this book. This cover, I know what it means. This title, I know what it means. Just the relationship between the sisters, between their parents, everything. The characters are so complex. It was so good, and these eyes are always going to make me feel things, always, whenever I look at the cover. I love the cover of the book now that I know the meaning, so I love the cover in a different way. And with that, we come towards the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Oh, it is raining right now. It's raining again. I had one of the best reading months ever, and I really hope you enjoyed the video too. I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye.